Okay, imagine this scenario. You've had a really tough fight with someone you care about. You want to smooth things over, say the perfect thing. So you turn to AI, you feed it all the details, and bam, it spits out what looks like the flawless apology. You deliver it word for word, and they just kind of look at you and say, "Did you get that from AI?" How does that land? That perfectly crafted response.
Oof. Yeah, it lands flat, doesn't it? And that right there is kind of the core of the issue with our maybe obsession with AI. It's that moment we forget what actually makes us human, what makes us beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not about getting everything perfect. It's embracing the imperfections, the messy journey of figuring things out.
Exactly. And that's precisely where we're diving deep today. We're looking at artificial intelligence, yeah, but not just as tech, more like a mirror, reflecting our own humanity back at us. We've got a whole stack of insights here from a really visionary thinker, someone focused on human connection, on purpose, on navigating these, well, modern challenges.
Hmm.
So, our mission today, let's try and uncover some of those hidden costs of convenience, the unexpected value that might actually come from struggle. And what does it really mean to be human now in a world that's being shaped more and more by AI?
Huge question.
Yeah. Hopefully we can uncover some insights that might, reframe how you think about AI, your work, maybe even your relationships.
Okay, let's do it. Because it is striking, isn't it? AI's ability to just produce, finished products, boom, a marketing plan, code for an app, synthesizing reports.
Right, the output.
Exactly, the output. And society and AI developers, too, seem totally focused on that destination, the finished thing. But we're completely, or seemingly, overlooking the journey, the actual value of struggling through the process.
So you're saying the real growth, the good stuff, isn't just in that polished end result. It's more in the gritty, maybe even painful process,
Not,
that excruciating journey you mentioned, like writing the book yourself, building the business from scratch, working
yeah,
through that argument. That's what makes you smarter, more resourceful.
precisely. That's where the muzzle gets built, so to speak. And this ties right into a really critical point. The potential loss of, well, essential human skills. Think about it. Technology always makes us give up some skills, right? Like, who memorizes phone numbers anymore?
Uh-huh, definitely not me.
Right. But here's the crucial difference, I think. Some of those skills we lost, like remembering numbers, they don't really fundamentally change our relationships or how we cope with stress. But other skills, they absolutely do.
Okay, so if AI gives you the perfect script for that difficult conversation,
Mhm.
what's the hidden cost? Like, what human development are we skipping? What are we not learning when we bypass the messy, awkward reality of just talking to each other?
Imagine AI gives everyone a boat. Fantastic, right? It's super convenient. Until a storm hits. And you realize you never actually learned how to swim.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. Unless we consciously take responsibility, take personal accountability to learn and maybe even teach these human skills, empathy, conflict resolution, listening, they could just fade away. Real emotional intelligence, it comes from living it, messing it up, trying again, not from a prompt.
And that totally shifts how we think about authenticity, doesn't it? Like all that AI-generated stuff, emails, marketing copy, even social media posts, it often just feels off, a bit hollow,
Yeah.
cookie cutter. It's making the internet feel less human. You can almost sense it sometimes.
It's true. And, it reminds me of that Japanese concept, wabi-sabi.
Wabi-sabi.
Yeah, finding beauty in things that are imperfect, impermanent, incomplete. Think of like a hand-thrown ceramic bowl that's a bit wonky, or the unique grain in a piece of wood. AI aims for flawless, predictable output. But it's our human flaws, the little mistakes, the slightly off-key notes that actually create connection. What makes people beautiful isn't getting everything right. Often it's getting things wrong, being vulnerable about it. We connect with people who accept our imperfections, right? And we learn to accept theirs.
So that perfect front we put up, like on a first date or a job interview, perfect suit, rehearsed answers, that can actually get in the way.
Yeah.
It hides the real you, makes it harder for someone to genuinely connect.
I think so.
And you see it in other areas too, like in chess or sports. Human error isn't just a mistake. It's part of the drama. It makes it fascinating because it's unpredictable. It's human.
Exactly. That's why often something handmade feels more valuable. It has the maker's touch, the
Yeah.
little imperfections that signal, authenticity. We're drawn to what feels uniquely human, not just perfectly replicated.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and look at the bigger picture, the impact on jobs. There's a real irony playing out here, isn't there? Thinking back to, say, the 70s and 80s, robotics started displacing factory workers, and the message back then from, let's call them the ruling classes, was pretty clear.
Oh, yeah. Reskill, learn computers, adapt.
Right, it was constant. Reskill, reskill.
But look at the irony now with AI. Now it's the knowledge workers. It's the coders, the finance folks, the writers. They're the ones getting worried. Meanwhile, you talk to a plumber, an electrician, a baggage handler. They seem pretty unconcerned, relatively speaking.
Huh, the pendulum really has swung.
It really has.
Yeah.
And you could almost hear the echo back. Reskill, reskill. Maybe become a plumber. It just highlights this fundamental shift, this cycle.
Which does make you wonder, do the people actually building this stuff, the leaders in AI, do they really know the full impact? We hear whispers, right, that even CEOs of the big AI companies say different things privately than they do in public. Hints of deeper concerns.
It definitely seems plausible.
Yeah.
Which points to a pretty clear need for, well, for some controls, some regulation. I mean, look at history. We put controls on cars, seatbelts, speed limits for safety for the common good.
Makes sense?
And other places like China or Europe, they have different approaches to internet controls than, say, the U.S. You could argue America's more laissez-faire approach hasn't exactly led to utopia online. So this idea of just no reform, no limits on AI, it just feels incredibly naive, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially when you factor in the race for dominance. The internet era kind of showed us how this can play out, right? Certain tech companies just won. They became these massive monopolies. Think Amazon in retail, Google in search.
Exactly. That winner-takes-all dynamic. And you see it happening again. It's fueling this incredibly aggressive race for AI dominance. Everyone wants to be the standard. And that pressure, that race, could easily push caution and controls to the side, which is, well, it's a scary thought.
Because once a standard is set by a dominant player,
it's really hard to change. And if that standard was built without enough thought for safeguards, yeah, deeply concerning for what comes next.
And this whole race, the potential job shifts, it leads us straight into another really big and sometimes contentious topic, universal basic income.
UBI.
Yes, UBI. The idea of just a regular unconditional payment to everyone, it's gaining steam, definitely tied to this fear of AI and automation taking jobs. You see folks like Sam Altman with WorldCoin really pushing it.
And the irony just keeps piling up, doesn't it? Often the very same people, or at least the same types of voices, advocating for UBI now were the ones arguing fiercely against it back when it was factory workers losing their jobs to the first wave of automation.
That's a really sharp point.
It raises this fundamental question. What happens to, human purpose, to meaning, pursuit, challenge? If people are just handed survival money instead of having the dignity and challenge of earning wealth, contributing, we have to be really careful that simply providing money doesn't inadvertently snuff out ambition or drive.
Okay, so with all these shifts happening, these massive questions, how do we even start thinking about future-proofing for our own careers, maybe for our kids? What does this actually mean for the future of work?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe the billion-dollar question now. I think the first thing is reassurance. Jobs probably won't vanish entirely, not en masse, but they will change a lot. Think about the IRS, for example. They went digital years ago. Did they fire all the accountants? No. They replaced a lot of them with IT people. The workforce shifted. It didn't necessarily shrink overall. The nature of the work changed.
Okay, so transformation, not elimination.
Largely, yes. And think about the downstream effects. AI data centers. They need massive amounts of energy, huge amounts. So maybe learning about nuclear engineering is actually a smarter bet for an advanced degree right now than, say, coding. Who knows? The point is, the skills needed will transform.
So given that, what's the advice for, say, a 10-year-old today? Or even for us as adults trying to navigate this? What skills should we focus on?
I think it boils down to two main areas. First, and maybe most importantly, human skills. Seriously. Learn how to be a good friend. Learn how to resolve conflict without screaming or running away. Learn how to give and receive feedback gracefully. Practice accountability. Cultivate empathy. For kids, this means actually putting phones away during play dates so they interact. Making them apologize properly after a fight. Teaching them these things explicitly.
So really doubling down on the soft skills, the things AI can't easily replicate.
Exactly. Because those are the skills that suffer most when we rely too much on tech shortcuts. And they're absolutely critical for a functioning, decent society.
Okay, that's human skills. What's the second area? You mentioned real difficult skills.
Yeah, the second part is engaging in stuff that's genuinely challenging. Hands-on things. Build something physical. Design something complex. Imagine something entirely new and try to create it. Write something yourself from scratch. Don't just prompt an AI. Get your hands dirty. Struggle with it. It's that struggle, that excruciating journey we talked about, that actually produces creativity, resourcefulness.
Makes you smarter, more confident, less afraid, maybe.
Absolutely, less afraid. It's tough, no doubt. It's uncomfortable. But that's precisely where the real growth happens.
Okay, I get that intellectually. It's just hard sometimes to choose the difficult path when the easy one is right there. But it links to another point you made about embracing failure, setting ambitions that are actually bigger than your current skills or resources.
Yes, that's so crucial.
Yeah.
Embracing failure, or at least the possibility of it, is fundamental for creativity,
Mm,
for resourcefulness.
yeah.
And ultimately, it builds real confidence, not arrogance, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you faced challenges and figured things out. True wisdom, I think, often comes from navigating those past failures.
Like that story you told about the senior firefighter.
Oh, yeah. The wildfire approaching incredibly fast. Everyone else is trained to run, try to outrun it. But this veteran, he just dropped to the ground, covered himself. The fire passed over him. The others didn't make it. He didn't learn that maneuver in fire school. That was wisdom accumulated over years of doing the work, of seeing things, maybe making mistakes, surviving them, learning from real-world, high-stakes situations.
Wow.
It's the same in relationships, right? You often come out of a conflict feeling closer to someone. Not because you handled it perfectly, but because you both got things wrong and you worked through it together. That's the journey.
Okay, so shifting again. In this world where AI makes creating things, generating content almost cost-free, near zero cost, it raises that huge question. When is enough enough? What actually leads to happiness? Is it just endless production?
It's such a profound question. We know, sort of clinically, that money buys happiness up to a point, right? Covering basic needs, security. Beyond that survival level, money mostly buys options. It buys time, maybe, but not necessarily more happiness. And interestingly, a lot of deep happiness seems to exist before massive wealth is accumulated.
How so?
Well, think about why small companies are often so much more innovative than huge corporations. Small companies usually have ambitions that are way bigger than their current resources. They have to be creative. They have to be resourceful just to survive and compete.
Right, necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. Big companies, on the other hand, often have resources that perfectly match or even exceed their ambitions, which can paradoxically lead to stagnation, less pressure to innovate radically. The struggle forces creativity.
So that reframes ambition entirely. It's not just about getting resources to match your goals, but maybe using ambitious goals to force that creative struggle, which then leads to maybe more fulfillment, more happiness.
I think that's a huge part of it. Happiness often comes from setting your sights on something bigger than just finite success, like hitting a revenue target. And crucially, practicing gratitude for the journey, for what you have right now.
You had that powerful example from the LA fires.
Ah, yeah, the experience of packing a go bag, knowing you might lose everything. The act of looking at your possessions, deciding what truly matters, and essentially saying thank you and goodbye to the rest. It fostered this incredibly deep sense of gratitude and acceptance of impermanence, and strangely led to a feeling of greater peace, maybe even happiness, appreciating what is, knowing it's temporary.
That's powerful, and it connects maybe to another major issue we're seeing, the loneliness epidemic.
Oh,
Alongside rising stress, anxiety, suicide rates, it all seems linked to this feeling of disconnection. And AI, ironically, with its perfect but impersonal interactions, could even make those insecurities worse, couldn't it?
It absolutely could. And what's fascinating and also kind of tragic is what happens psychologically when people feel lonely. Often they retreat. They go into this self-preserving mode, become more guarded, maybe even more selfish, which is the exact opposite of what's needed to build connections.
So it becomes a vicious cycle.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But there's a potentially powerful antidote mentioned in the insights we looked at. Instead of focusing inward on your own loneliness, actively focus on helping others who seem lonely. The act of service, of reaching out to connect with someone else who's struggling, that itself can be incredibly beneficial for your own well-being.
That's counterintuitive, but it makes sense, shifting the focus outward. But a big part of reaching out or letting others in is vulnerability, right? And that's hard. People are afraid to share their real selves, worried others will judge them, change their opinion, dislike them.
It's a huge barrier. But the question becomes, how can we possibly build real connection if we're never willing to take that risk? Opening up is a risk. Yes, maybe someone won't like the real you, but maybe they'll love and appreciate you even more for your authenticity. The odds are probably pretty even. It requires that leap of faith to find genuine connection.
So if we take that leap, How do we actually build true community? Not just followers or an audience, but real community, especially when so much interaction is digital.
Well, one definition I really like is community is a group of people who agree to grow together.
Hmm.
There's a massive difference between just having an audience who consume your content and building a community where there's mutual support and shared growth. And interestingly, even brands are starting to realize this. They see the immense value in fostering real, in-person, human-centric communities.
And that requires staying true to your values, right?
Right.
Even when success comes.
Oh, definitely. The seduction of money or fame or status. It can easily make us drift away from our core values, our original mission. That's where true friends become absolutely essential. They're the ones who can gently or maybe not so gently pull you back, keep you aligned.
Which means being really intentional about who we spend our time with, how we structure our relationships, treating them as seriously as, say, work commitments.
Absolutely. Like literally scheduling friend tea or a call into your calendar, just like a work meeting. Choosing who you collaborate with based not just on talent or money, but on shared values, positive energy. Does this person lift you up? Maybe choosing a book publisher based on who you think you'll fight with best, meaning who will challenge you constructively to make the best possible book.
Or picking a job based on the quality of the mentor you'll have, not just the highest salary offer.
Exactly. It's about playing the long game. Thinking about those 5 buckets of a career. Your knowledge and skills, those are foundational. They're resilient. Your network, resources, reputation, skill, those can fluctuate, right? They can disappear overnight sometimes. Life has a way of resetting you back to your core level of knowledge and skill, so invest there.
And good leaders help you build that foundation.
Yes. The best leaders foster self-reliance. They let you stumble a bit, make mistakes, figure things out, because that's how you build valuable experience. Like learning to always have a backup plan because maybe you got burned once when you didn't. It's that struggle again, that journey making you better.
You know, it leads to this surprising paradox you mentioned. Friction creates freedom. What does that mean exactly?
Well, think back before smartphones, before constant connectivity. Work, for most people, stayed at work. You left the office and you were done. There was natural friction separating work and life. Now, technology has removed all that friction. Work comes with us everywhere, in our pocket. Boundaries are blurred. The pressure is constant.
So less friction doesn't automatically mean more freedom or less stress.
Exactly. In fact, AI's promise to reduce friction even further might ironically lead to more stress, more overwhelm, because the implicit expectation becomes always on, always productive. Maybe, just maybe, AI's true potential isn't just doing more tasks faster, but actually giving us back some of that spare time we seem to have lost over the last few decades. Time for hobbies, like you mentioned DJing or kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery. Time for just being. For relationships.
But that requires conscious effort, right? Intentionality.
Totally. Like deliberately hiding social media apps so you don't just open them out of habit. Carving out specific, protected time for personal connections, for deep work, for play. Being intentional about where friction should exist.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to something you touched on earlier, maybe the ultimate antidote, the ultimate biohack in all this. Friendship. It's funny, there's a huge industry built around leadership advice, around romantic relationships, but surprisingly little on just how to be a good friend.
It's so true. And yet friends are absolutely crucial, aren't they? They're often the support system that helps you navigate the stresses from your career and your romantic relationships. They're the people you turn to when other things feel like they're falling apart. So yeah, maybe friendship really is the ultimate biohack for tackling loneliness, depression, anxiety, stress, all of it.
But like other healthy things, exercise, eating well, it's not always easy, is it? It takes effort.
Definitely not always easy or fun in the moment, but profoundly good for you in the long run. And it means being discerning, distinguishing between, say, deal friends, people who maybe just fill a space, convenient acquaintances, and true friends, the ones who genuinely lift you up, challenge you, teach you, support your growth.
And fighting the tendency to be lazy. Lazy with friendships.
Yeah, that's a real thing. We meet someone interesting, someone we click with, feel a potential connection, and then life gets busy, and we just don't follow up. We don't prioritize building that relationship. And there's a subtle danger, especially if you achieve some level of fame or financial success. It can make you lazy in relationships because other people start doing the heavy lifting for you. They make the effort to stay connected to you.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
So it requires that conscious effort. And in a world just drowning in digital noise, simple human acts stand out, don't they? Picking up the phone for a real conversation instead of texting, sending a handwritten note. These almost feel like premium acts now. They signal real human connection.
So the takeaway seems to be, in this age of increasingly powerful AI, the things that are most human connection, imperfection, vulnerability, intentional effort in relationships, they become even more valuable, not less.
I absolutely believe that. It's about consciously choosing to invest in our humanity, in our relationships, understanding that the journey, with all its bumps and imperfections, is where the real richness of life is found.
A powerful thought to end on. Consider how you, listening right now, can be more intentional about investing in those human connections, remembering that the messy, imperfect journey is the point.
And maybe one final image, that military challenge coin from the Air Force Top Gun school, inscribed with just 3 words: build, teach, lead. Oh. First, you build your own knowledge and skills, the hard work, the journey. Then you teach others, share what you've learned. And finally, you lead, empowering others to build and teach themselves. It feels like a timeless mantra, doesn't it? Reflecting that core human drive to learn, to serve, to grow together, especially important now.